Where we are 25 years after. So we have three panelists that will join us here on the stage. Elizabeth Silmer-Jones, we have already introduced her. Please come and have a seat. Lisbeth, we also have Lisbeth Pilgaard. Please come and join us. Lisbeth Pilgaard is member of Nordic Women Mediators Network, and she's also director of Fonden Project Utenfor. She's a founder of Pilgaard Consulting, and she's been a chair of the executive committee and member of board of governors for the European Endowment for Democracy. She's also been an expert advisor in UN high-level panel on humanitarian financing. She's worked on Middle East, North Africa, on research and information on gender equality and diversity at Kvinfo. And she's also worked at Norwegian Refugee Council in Oslo. And then we have Tom Ndahiro. Please come and join us. Tom is an independent research professional and is a founding member of Interdisciplinary Genocide Study Center. He specialized in genocide ideology and genocide denial. Previously, as a practicing journalist, he has published multiple works in Kenya, Rwanda, English and French. And much of his work is based on primary research and using his knowledge of Rwandan society, culture, and history. For over 15 years, Tom has run a private documentation and archive center that helps researchers doing research in the field of genocide and violent extremism. And he's the author of The Friends of Evil, When NGOs Support Genocidaries, which was published in 2013. So please give the panel a hand. I'll start with asking a question to you, Lisbeth Pilgaard. You have devoted a big part of your career towards issues regarding women, peace and security, and you're a member of the Nordic Women Mediator Network, and you have over 20 years of civil society experience as manager of humanitarian organizations and programs based in Asia, Africa and the Balkans, Caucasus and the Middle East. Next year marked the 20th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 2035, as we talked about earlier. During these last 2 decades, the gender perspective to peace and security has gained increased recognition by the international community. So I would like to ask you, what does a gender perspective to peace and security really imply?
Thank you very much. Well, it's a big question on what it implies, and I think there are probably many different interpretations of what it could entail. But for me, and based on the work and experience I have, I would say that it's about representation, it's about inclusion, and it's about equality. To have women sitting at the table where decisions are being made at all levels, before, during and after a conflict, is essential if we want to talk about an equal society and having equal representation. So for me, in short, it's about having all humans of a society participating fully in decisions made that influence us all at all levels.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and we will get back to some of those discussions a little bit later. I'd like to ask Tom Ndahiro. You're an expert on genocide ideology and a founding member of the Interdisciplinary Genocide Study Center. And during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, gender-based violence was really widespread. And many researchers have argued that sexual violence was deliberately used as a weapon of war. How would you explain genocide ideology, and what are the motives and rationality behind the act of sexual violence in genocide?
Thank you, Caroline. You have asked two heavy questions explaining genocide ideology and how sexual violence is related to the genocide. For the case of Rwanda, genocide, the sexual violence wasn't a weapon of war, but a product of a genocide ideology. I hope you'll allow me to explain, as you have used the word explanation. When you talk about an ideology, you are talking about a set of beliefs, and usually fake beliefs, which create narratives, discourse, full of vocabularies of motive to mobilize a section of a population against the other group. In order to understand what happened in Rwanda, sometimes it's important to understand what happened to other parts of the world. In 1924, when Adolf Hitler published a book called Mein Kampf, you find similarities between what is written in the Mein Kampf and the genocide ideology in Rwanda. When you read the Mein Kampf, I just went through that book, and you find the portrayal of the Jews, portraying them as parasites, germ carriers, leeches, vampires, subhumans and immoral, predator parasites, liars, filthy, crafty, maggots, sponges, interminable bloodsuckers, repulsive, unscrupulous, etc. Same descriptions were used to describe Tutsis in Rwanda. I just want to give you an example of a document which was published in 1976 by someone known as Joseph Gitera. Joseph Gitera was writing to Habyarimana, and that letter, which was published into a small book, had a title Parki et comment réconcilier les Hutus, les Tutsis, les Hutus, les Tutsis du Rwanda entre eux. And this document would later be published 14 years later in the famous publication called Kangura, of which many non-Rwandans, especially the young ones, don't understand when I speak about Kangura. Who knows Kangura in this room? Excuse me. You are a minority. Kangura was a publication which was started by the government of that time, and it came to be known, especially in 1990, when it published the first set of 10 commandments, 10 Hutu commandments. And in that publication of Kangura issue number 6, published a section of that letter, which was written to the president in 1976. And part of that letter, which was published in a book, reads, "It is the pretentious Tutsi with his Mhutu slave and his Mutwa clown and hunting dog, who chose exile from Rwanda because of his misdeeds and is now scheming against Rwanda and Rwandans. And it is this grudge-holding Mututsi who, with courtesan Hutu and his subservient Mutwa, is nesting like a snake, ready to devour Rwanda and the oblivious Rwandans. The text reads in part. This was 1976, but the author of this text in 1976, this was not the first one to write a hate message. The first hate message this Gitera wrote was in 1959. And in 1959, he was the first one to write the 10 Hutu commandments on the 27th September 1959. And I'm not going to read all 10 commandments, although it could help you understand what it meant at that time. The third commandment, never exchange with ideas with the Tutsi. He's simply a liar by nature. Commandment number 4, never forge friendship with the Tutsi. Living in friendship with the Tutsi is to carry a burden. Commandment number 5, if one wanted to take revenge on Tutsis' hatred, this species would be erased from the earth. But the law provides for self-protection against an enemy and legitimate defense. Commandment number 6, never commit adultery, especially with a Tutsi woman. It is not forbidden to marry them, it is worse to womanize them. Commandment number 7, never tell lies like a Tutsi. Denounce them publicly and their little schemes. Commandment number 9, it is abominable to covet their women or their daughters. They have nothing to show that ours do not have, except their failings and vices. I've just read through without. Take a look at the 10 commandments of Kangura in 1990, a difference of 35 years. There is an evolution of hatred. And when the vocabulary of 10 commandments is a decalogue. What's the source? The Bible. Commandment number 1, every Hutu male should know that Tutsi women, wherever they are, or wherever they may be, are working in the pay of their Tutsi ethnic group. Consequently, shall be deemed a traitor any Hutu male who marries a Tutsi woman, any Hutu male who keeps a Tutsi concubine, any Hutu male who makes a Tutsi woman his secretary or protege. Commandment number 2, every Hutu male must know that our Hutu daughters are more dignified and conscientious in their role of women, wife, and mother. Are they not pretty, good secretaries, and more honesty? Asks the commandment. Commandment number 3, Hutu women, be vigilant and bring your husbands, brothers, and sons back to their senses. Commandment number 4, every Hutu male must know that all Tutsis are dishonest in their business dealings. They are only seeking ethnic supremacy. And so, who shall be considered a traitor, any Hutu male who enters into a business partnership with the Tutsi, who invests his money or state money in a Tutsi company, who lends to or borrows from a Tutsi. Commandment number 7, I've jumped from number 5 and 6. The Rwandan armed forces should be exclusively Hutu. That is the lesson we learned from the October 1990 war. No soldier must marry a Tutsi woman. Commandment number 8, Hutu must cease having any pity for Tutsi. Commandment number 9, the Hutu male, wherever they are, should be united in solidarity and be concerned by the fate of their Hutu brothers. The Hutus at home and abroad must constantly seek friends and allies for the Hutu cause beginning with their Bantu brothers. This particular section, this is 1990. Someone, because of this solidarity, I'll talk about later, whereby a Tanzanian genocide ideologue, in 2013, he describes a Tutsi in this language. The apartheid system of the Boers in South Africa is nothing compared to the wickedness of the Tutsi, considering the way they denigrated the Hutu and the other Bantus in their wicked belief that they were made to rule while the Hutu were made to be their slaves. It is well known fact that Tutsi look with disdain at the Hutu and other Bantus like you would do with the feces. Tutsis are devilish and have hatched a scheme to control the region. This document was written in Swahili. Most of these theories were created based on some theories that were brought to Rwanda by colonial and missionary anthropologists, that the Rwandans were different. And they carried from those artificial differences, which Trump would easily call fake news today, and it is from this fake news that the plan to kill the Tutsis and the genocide ideology was developed and eventually put into practice in 1994. If today we are talking about genocide prevention, you mentioned you mentioned the Genocide Convention. If you want to prevent the genocide and even punish, and in the preamble they say international cooperation is required if you want really to fight the genocide. If you want to do that, deal with the words before you deal with the guns. Deal with the words before you deal with the guns. It is these words which killed people. And if you look at these 10 commandments, 4 commandments in the 10 Hutu commandments of 1990 are against women. There are 10 against Tutsi, but 4 are particularly targeted Tutsi women. The 10 commandments of 1959, 2 of them, they target Tutsi women, meaning that there were a propaganda against Tutsi in general, but a propaganda against Tutsi women in particular. They were inspired by the biblical connotations of the Delilah and Samson as someone who was treacherous, seductive, dangerous, and a special enemy who was spying and that had to be dealt with utmost cruelty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for giving this historical account of the evolution of hatred and also specifically identifying how this has been put in words over time and also, as you say, what's needed for prevention, that words are important. We will continue to discuss as we move forward in the debate. I'd like to ask Lisbeth Silmer-Jones, both